Most video game plots these days are the furthest thing from subtle. However, oftentimes, creators will have enough faith in players to figure things out for themselves and simply leave a shocking plot twist waiting to be discovered. These 9 hit video games all dared to hide game-changing rug pulls in collectible files and tapes to reveal crucial information through easily missed one-liners, and basically reward only the most attentive and curious players with the full breadth of the narrative. Stay tuned and watch. Michael assassinates an innocent man in GTA 5. By the Book is by far GTA 5's most controversial mission, where Trevor is tasked with torturing a man, Ferdinand Karimov, in order to ascertain the location and appearance of Tahir Javan, an Azerbaijani man who the FIB claims has links to terrorist groups. The player is forced to put Karimov through the ringer as Michael gets closer to tracking down Javan, culminating in Michael finally eliminating Javan with a well-placed sniper bullet. Mission complete. And while the mission as a whole is clearly a brutally satirical examination of enhanced interrogation techniques used by the U.S. authorities, the real sting in the tail is only revealed on a Weasel News radio broadcast that randomly plays after the mission is completed. The news piece reveals that Javan was innocent, referring to him as a much-loved Azerbaijani man, noted philanthropist and community leader, while noting that the police are baffled why anyone would murder him. You can also find a copy of the Los Santos Shepherd newspaper, which goes into further detail about Javan's investments in green energy initiatives and his funding of education programs in both the US and Azerbaijan. Basically, how could you hate this guy? This confirms that the shady FIB were only looking after their own interests, and you just killed a totally innocent person in cold blood to cover your own hide, putting a stop to Javan's humanitarian efforts in the process. And yet, it's an easily missed revelation if you're not listening to the right radio station or simply not paying attention. Wander is Ico's ancestor in Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus is a wonderful game with a baffling ending which has mystified fans and casual observers alike ever since. After protagonist Wander has felled all 16 colossi, he discovers that he was tricked by the supernatural entity Dorman, and that killing the beast simply allowed Dorman's soul, which had been locked away, to reform. Wander then becomes possessed by a powerful Dorman, growing horns out of his head and transforming into a giant creature, which is eventually defeated by Lord Eamon. Wander's love Mono then awakens to find a horned baby in the temple, the implication being that Wander, or possibly a Wander-Dorman hybrid, has been reborn and given another chance to live his life. But this also provides a neat and unexpected lead into Team Ico's previous game, Ico, whose titular protagonist also bore horns. Director Fumito Ueda has since confirmed that Shadow of the Colossus is a prequel to Ico, basically confirming that Wander is Ico's ancestor, with the entire bloodline being cursed to bear horns for his misdeeds. You're secretly a villain in Inside. Inside is one of the most unforgettable video game experiences of the last few years, all the way through to its insane ending, where the boy protagonist is sucked into a fleshy blob known as the Huddle, which violently escapes from its confinement and comes to rest as a serene coastline. But things get even trippier if you manage to unlock Inside's alternate ending, which requires the player to deactivate a series of 14 orbs hidden throughout the game. Upon doing so and returning to where the second orb was hidden, you can enter a bunker, and after completing a cipher puzzle, you'll find a room with a series of computers, a mind control helmet, and a plug. The player can then pull the plug, which immediately causes the boy to slump down in the limp state, adopted by all the other slave humans seen throughout the game, and the player can no longer control him. The end, though the ending is technically ambiguous and Playdead has flatly refused to explain it, the widely accepted interpretation is that this final pulling of the plug represents the boy being set free from the player themselves, who in turn is implied to be another layer of antagonistic control. Yikes! Val was probably born a male, Outlast 2. Val is one of Outlast 2's primary antagonists, a member of the Heretics who seeks to ensure the birth of the Antichrist. In one gnarly scene, she memorably appears before protagonist Blake in the nude, smothered in mud, while her bodily form very clearly resembles that of a woman. But those who dig into the game's collectible files may stumble across a document in the compound basement called Val's Secret, where Val is referred to as a he, accentuating the peculiar fact that Papa Noth speaks of Val in masculine pronouns during the game. Though developer Red Barrels has refused to confirm Val's sex one way or another, they did comment Val is Val, further fueling the belief among fans that Val may be a male-to-female transsexual and was physically born male or was perhaps born intersex. Given that Val is also said to be unable to produce children, as is often a complication for people born intersex in particular, it seems that there's more to Val than there initially seems. It's certainly an unexpected feat of LGBTQ+ representation in a video game, and a welcome one, even if it flew clean over the heads of most players. Lucas is spying on his own family, Resident Evil 7. The antagonistic Baker family are the easy highlight of Resident Evil 7, and though most of the family are dead by the end of the game, their troubled son Lucas actually makes it through RE7 intact, though he's eventually killed by Chris Redfield in the Not a Hero DLC. And in classic Resident Evil fashion, RE7 drops plenty of its lore in documents scattered throughout, with one especially curious file on Lucas's laptop in the laboratory near the end of the game revealing some pivotal information about him. The file states that, contrary to what seemed self-evident, Lucas wasn't in fact under Eveline's control, having been given a vaccine by a mysterious third party prior to the start of the game and then spying on his infected, controlled family in return. As for how Lucas's hand still regenerates after Jack cuts it off, it seems that Lucas is still infected with the mold even if he isn't subject to Eveline's control. Despite how vital this piece of character shading is for understanding one of RE7's most memorable antagonists, Skullface forced Chico to sexually assault Paz, Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes stirred up huge controversy when the end of the game revealed that Snake's old pal Paz had been experimented upon by the villainous Skullface, who shoved a bomb up her vagina, which promptly explodes, killing her. But if you bothered to collect the various audio cassettes hidden throughout Ground Zeroes, you might have stumbled across one which filled in some of the intensely disturbing blanks of Paz's captivity under Skullface, along with her friend Chico. As it turns out, after having his own soldiers rape Paz, Skullface also forced Chico to do the same to her on the threat of death if he refused. This is depicted in nauseatingly graphic detail in the tapes, and honestly you're probably better off not listening to them, especially if you're weak of stomach. But they do nevertheless provide some extremely disconcerting context for what happened to the two captives you rescued during the game, even if Kojima's handling of the situation is, typically, far from delicate. Wesker totally had the hots for Rebecca Chambers, Resident Evil 2. There's an infamous Easter egg in the original version of Resident Evil 2, where if the player searches Albert Wesker's desk in the STARS office 50 times, they'll receive a secret film canister, which, when developed, reveals a photo of Rebecca Chambers in a basketball uniform. Back in 1998, that Wesker of all people would have a cute picture of Rebecca was baffling enough, and many fans suggested that the supervillain perhaps had a soft spot for the young officer. Hilariously, this year's remake actually doubled down on that theory by revising the Easter egg to be a decidedly more risque and suggestive photo of Rebecca, this time stretched into an inviting position. There's no easy way to explain this really, beyond accepting the obvious. Given that Capcom made the implication even more overt in the remake, it's pretty clear what fans are supposed to take away from it. But before we continue to our number one entry, it will contain side mission spoilers for Death Stranding. The pizza delivery guy is actually Higgs, Death Stranding. Hideo Kojima's insane recent release Death Stranding features a memorable series of side quests where Sam undertakes pizza delivery missions for an unseen man known only as Peter Englert. These missions require Sam to carefully stack and carry the pizza within a limited time in order to ensure Mr. Englert can enjoy its hot, doughy goodness as intended. But as it turns out, this is yet another classic Kojima troll, and one which contains an unexpectedly huge bombshell of a spoiler. You see, Peter Englert is actually a pseudonym, an amalgam of the names of theoretical physicists Peter Higgs and Francois Englert, who discovered the Higgs mechanism. Simply, it's no coincidence that one of the game's primary antagonists is named Higgs. The truth of the matter is finally revealed to those who visit Peter Englert's home after fighting Higgs, where they'll discover Higgs' hideout and realize that he was the guy ordering pizzas from you all along. In addition to finding Higgs' mad ramblings scrawled all over the wall, you can pick up a memory chip which fills in his backstory, and you'll also unlock the God Particle Go-Getter trophy for your trouble. But given that the whole Englert subplot seemed like nothing more than peak Kojima silliness, that it actually had a fairly meaningful payoff is genuinely shocking and quite brilliant. It's set in the Alan Wake universe, Control. Remedy Entertainment's Control was released this past summer to rock-solid reviews, but you might have missed that the sci-fi action-adventure game also appears to exist within the same universe as Remedy's prior franchise, Alan Wake. As many fans suspected pre-release, Control contains several Easter eggs which effectively confirm the two IP to exist within the same shared continuity. For starters, the game's Altered World events were mentioned in Alan Wake, and players are able to come across a document explaining an altered item which just so happens to be Alan Wake's famous collectible thermoses, with the report even mentioning Wake as a witness. Furthermore, the document suggests Wake was a prime candidate to become director of the Federal Bureau of Control before his disappearance. And if you're still not convinced, you can even track down where the altered thermos is stashed, after which you'll trigger a vision of Alan, who briefly monologues to protagonist Jesse. All of this is missed incredibly easily, but given how passionately Alan Wake fans have been campaigning for more of that world, this is a pretty damn significant twist. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.